Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. And we are on episode number 7.
Oh yeah, milestone.
Yeah. Rolls on. It's going well. Very happy. And today, Joe, we are talking the journey to black belt.
That's right. I want to dig into your story a little bit and find out just what the path's been like, some of the trials and tribulations, some of the victories, some of the losses. Because I think it's really, it's very, from the outside, you see someone that's a black belt or a higher belt in jiu-jitsu, and it's very easy to just kind of, not really think much about, oh, fuck, they went through all of this shit that, I went through as a white belt or a blue belt. Like, they've been through this whole experience, which often doesn't get spoken about much by the time you get to that level. So I thought it'd be cool to dig into that a little bit. Yeah,
definitely. And it can get forgotten because you're not, and this is not even technology. This is just as humans, Instagram wasn't so big when I started jiu-jitsu, so I don't have as many photos from that time. And also because I feel the recent constructs of social media, we only like to show the wins, and there's so many more losses than there is wins. Even if you're winning, there's like so much stuff where you're not loving what's going on, and you don't document that. You don't share that so willingly. And I'm happy to talk about any of that.
Mate, how long have you been a black belt for?
I have been a black belt for bit over 4 years, 4.5 years now.
Right on. And your coach?
My coach is Lachlan Giles from Absolute MMA. And I received my brown belt from Lockie and also Thiago Stefanuti. So shout out to Thiago Stefanuti, who's the head coach, the head of jiu-jitsu at Absolute MMA. Because if it wasn't for Thiago, I wouldn't have gone to Absolute. And ultimately, over time, wouldn't have kind of had the nice home that I had to then be able to work with Lockie and then be guided by him in the last 6 or so years.
Is Lockie a black belt under Thiago?
He is. He got his first stripe from Thiago, but he was originally graded, forgive me for not knowing, by a Will Machado black belt.
Okay.
So
Very
yeah,
cool.
it goes that way.
And so I guess, for people who are listening who don't know that gym, Absolute MMA in St Kilda.
Yeah, so there's a couple because Absolute has expanded. So there's the gym in the CBD. There's also a gym in Collingwood, which is the north of Melbourne, and that's probably a more MMA-focused gym. That's where the pros train, and a great kickboxing program, great jiu-jitsu there as well. The CBD there's a lot of really high-level jiu-jitsu guys there, but obviously there's plenty of other people who are there in the city trying to get their training in. And then St Kilda is very much, even though they have really good kickboxing and MMA, it is pro jiu-jitsu focused. Like, the guys who are training twice a day, 3 times a day, you'll find them at St Kilda at Absolute MMA.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's kind of known for being a bit of a savage gym. You say it's one of the top no-gi gyms or just jiu-jitsu gyms?
I would say it's just one of the top gyms in general. Like, I guess that it has an open door policy, and that's always been a strength. If you're a black belt, you don't pay a mat fee. Just come and train.
Yeah.
And there's no politics on that. And I think that's been a strength. Like, you get all kinds of people coming in the door. We had Israel Adesanya come and roll at our gym. Jake Matthews will come.
Well, you guys should have given him his purple belt. Fuck,
he didn't deserve it.
There's a huge marketing opportunity.
It.
It doesn't matter.
Bro,
obviously.
Respect to Izzy. Spetch. He is a savage. But I'm telling you, okay, so a lot of people don't know this. Craig Jones has an older brother, Adam Jones. The nicer, better Jones.
Is that Mr. Jones on
Mr.
Instagram?
Jones 182, shout out. One of the most savage lad dads of all time.
Dadley.
He's a dadley. 100%. And he is a lovely guy. And when he first came to St Kilda to train, he got beat up a lot. Even though he's like a huge human, he's like 6'7" and could Muay Thai your face off. His banter was stronger than his jiu-jitsu. But then his jiu-jitsu got significantly better. And Izzy came to train, and I wasn't part of the session. I came late, but I saw Adam Jones beating the crap out of Israel Adesanya.
Holy shit.
And I put a smash on Adam Jones, and I was like, oh, easy, man. Your jiu-jitsu sucks, homie. But I mean, he's still a champ, right? And I think he has gotten way better at jiu-jitsu. But if you can even just look at many things, if you go to a pure jiu-jitsu gym and you're not that, you're gonna feel it.
Yeah, these are specialized athletes.
Yeah, I mean,
know this sport in and out.
I mean, even Alex Volkanovski came in to Absolute MMA, and he had a knee brace on, like a knee limiting, only 45 degrees range of motion, and I think he had a wrist brace on.
Holy shit!
And he took me down. Like, he came at me so hard. And I love Alex Volkanovski. Shout out, champ. Bro, I mean, I was able to submit him a couple of times, but Jesus Christ, that guy, pound for pound, is one of the strongest humans I've touched. I actually didn't know who he was at that time.
Holy shit.
He wasn't champ.
It was before he was a champ.
It was before he was champ. And I actually mistook him for a different MMA guy and actually said to him, I said, "Oh, are you this guy?" He's like, "Nah, mate. I'm Alex Volkanovski." And I was like, "I'm so sorry, mate." He was totally good humored about it. He's like, "Is the guy good looking?" And I was like, "No, you're probably better looking than him. Sorry." My mistake. But yes, it was great to be in that environment because the open door policy. My jiu-jitsu got exposed to way more people, and that helped me a lot.
Take us back to the start. Where did you didn't start at that gym. Where did you kick off?
I kicked off at Peter DeBean's in March of 2008. And at that time, that was the most savage gym in Australia. It was the biggest gym, most savage. Don't get me wrong, all shout out, credit to John Will. He has great guys under him. He's a tough guy. He's a legend, I should say. Not only is he a tough human, he's a legend. But at that time, I didn't know it. I just walked in there by random chance and got mauled. And I would say 70% of the gym was over 80 kilos.
Wow.
There's some big monsters in there. And look, I'll be honest, I don't think it was the most technical training. Not that Pete didn't show techniques, but it was like, here's the technique. If you understand it, good. If you don't, whatever. And now, go hard. The mentality to go hard and just, I guess Pete had such a large volume of students, he didn't care if you stayed. Like, it didn't matter.
That kind of seems characteristic of the old school jiu-jitsu too, doesn't it?
Yes.
Where it was like a lot of going hard. Less refinement to the technique. I mean, obviously there's always been people that have been better technicians than others.
Yes.
But I feel like my introduction to jiu-jitsu too was like, here's like some basic submissions, basic take. All right, just now try and kill each other.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. Yeah. And Pete's a contrarian. He doesn't answer questions directly. He'll say weird things to you to psych you out. And really, even though Pete had an amazing close guard game and, he mentored under Carlos Gracie Jr., and that's kind of his heritage, and he started his club as a blue belt. Pete's a super tough guy. I hit a point in the jiu-jitsu journey where I wasn't learning. Like, all I knew was close guard, flower sweep, armbar. That was my first 2 years of jiu-jitsu. And I think to myself, I wanted to learn more, but no one was really open to showing me that. There was a couple of people who helped me. Angus Friend, shout out. Angus is a black belt under Pete. He actually showed me a couple more sweeps and techniques, thankfully. But other than that, I was just surviving. So I feel like I wasted a lot of time not wasted, but I only had 3 techniques. So I got really good at them, but I could have learnt way more.
It's funny to think that there was a time when the restriction for development in jiu-jitsu was a lack of information.
Yeah.
Like now, being in a time where there is a major oversupply of information. You can BJJ Fanatics, YouTube, Instagram.
Sure.
There's more techniques than you can poke a fucking stick at.
Yes, indeed.
But back then it was like you would have a blue belt running an academy.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know one sweep, one submission.
Yep.
And one form of guard. If
Yes.
someone could just show me another option.
Yeah, and also it was frowned on. Like, I wanted to learn X guard because I'd heard about Marcelo Garcia. And then one of the brown belts says to me, "Oh, mate, don't do that. You'll never get your blue belt." You ask Pete about X guard. No.
Because he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it. He thinks it's bullshit. I was just like, what? I'm like, I got short legs,
It's like
man.
what we think about bolos.
Yeah. No, well, the thing is...
We're coming around.
We're no. Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things.
But it's that same thing it's like, what's this new shit?
What is this BS?
Stick to the fundamentals and stuff that works.
But if it's very effective, you got to... And I even thought to myself, because I studied education at uni for the brief time I was at uni, but then I thought, why is he blocking knowledge? because I got different books and information on the internet and Gracie Mag. I was seeing different techniques in Gracie Mag. I was like, oh, spider guard, what's that? It was cool. I was like, God, that's hot. But almost no one would. I had a small collection of friends who we could practice with, but apart from that, it was like dark arts. Yeah. I was like, I just thought to myself, why?
Yeah.
And then that led me to change clubs after my blue belt.
So in that time, in your, say in 2008 you started, so say in those first sort of 2 to 3 years, which is, for most people, I think those first couple of years is like the honeymoon period, where you're just fucking loving being in the fire of these intense training sessions. How old were you then?
I started jiu-jitsu when I was 25.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, I came in very fit and strong. Like I came in off full-time athlete mode from Taekwondo, but then also hardcore kettlebell training, which I was doing conditioning and strength. So I came in like good shape already. And then it was just like, right, how do I translate this to jiu-jitsu?
So probably back then, like most of us, very little regard for personal safety.
Yeah.
You're just throwing yourself into everything.
100%.
Training as much as you want. Really not too concerned about like what you're doing off the mats, where it's just like, just fucking train.
Well, no, I was doing S&C stuff off the mat. Like I was lifting probably 4 times a week and I would stretch. But that's my default mode. I know that's not most people.
Yep.
You know, I know most people are not doing that. And pretty much almost no one at my gym was doing that. Only 1 or 2 other people would do yoga or something like that. And also the thing which was just so strange to me is that I did know physios. I'd had injuries. So I had those relationships where if I cracked a rib or whatever it might be, I would go see my physio. Whereas that was just like alien terminology in jiu-jitsu. No one saw. You'd be lucky if people would go to the doctor. It was like kind of like weak. Like, oh man, just train through.
Yeah.
That's standard. Yeah. So I did get a lot of injuries because I also didn't know what I was doing. I was going in positions I probably shouldn't have been in.
Yep.
Some spinal. Ribs, a lot of rib injuries because I was playing a lot of half guard, and that was my progression from close guard, half guard, getting under people, also fighting in the absolute. I always got injuries against much bigger opponents.
You were competing in those early days?
Yeah, I think
white belt, blue belt.
Yeah, I was my most competitive. Well, my most competitive phase was probably purple, but to be honest, white, blue. I actually went to Brazil my first year of white belt. So within my first year, in 2009, I took a trip to Brazil with the crew from the Beans. We had like 5 guys, and I competed at the Rio Open.
Sick.
And I won that bad boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool.
First white belt to do that.
How many, really?
Yeah.
Is that right, from Australia?
Yeah.
How sick.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was so good, man. And when you're in the Tijuca Tennis Club, where all the legendary fights have happened, and it's like, but it's so loud and so confusing. But you see those medals, man, and it's got Jesus on it. It's like I feel like a gangster rapper. Like I feel like Ghostface Killer. I got Jesus on my chain, boy. Man, it was crazy. Like I did the same thing. I pulled closed guard. I swept. I got the armbar. It was like I won pretty much every match like that.
How many matches were there?
It was 6 for me.
Jesus.
Rhodey had maybe 7. Rhodey was a blue belt, and he won his. And Big Mick got bronze in weight and absolute at black belt.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was a big day. And I think he choked out Bernardo Faria.
Oh, wow.
And Celcinho Celcinho was coaching us because he was associated with Gordo Jiu-Jitsu, and he knew Mick from when he was very young. And so he was screaming, and the referee gave pass points to Bernardo, and Bernardo hadn't quite passed. And Celcinho was like, I'll kill you and your family. You robbed my fighter. Like in Portuguese, going mental, trying to jump the fence. Because Celcinho at that time was like a champion, and like everyone's like, oh, and he's an intense human. But then Mick took Bernardo's back and actually choked him.
Wow.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
But then he lost the next match, which is a semi. So he got bronze, but then he got bronze in the absolute. So it was a great day. But what was incredible is because I didn't know what I could do, because I'd never really, I feel, achieved what I wanted in Taekwondo. But it's a long leg man game. Coming to grappling and having shorter legs, lower center of gravity, it was actually kind of good. And I just did the same thing. But in the final, I fought like a 16-year-old kid from Gracie Baja who pulled guard on me. And I was like, oh, shit. I don't really know how to pass guard. Just trying not to get swept. He was trying to do to me what I was trying to do to him. But then eventually I just kind of forced his legs open and passed. It took me like nearly the whole match. But when I passed, he kind of broke. And then I armbarred the shit out of him.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, man, it was
The
just
nicest moment when you feel somebody crumble.
Oh, yeah, you broke, son. But he's like a young kid and I'm a grown man, fully athletic. He was just gangly as hell. But I remember getting back to our little damp apartment, like little house in the mountain under Pedro de Gavia. And man, just thinking, fuck, I think I can do this. Like, I've only done this a year. I just won my first international medal. Like, I gave me a crazy level of self-belief and passion for what jiu-jitsu can be. Because when you see dudes screaming and hollering and like guys are so intense on how important jiu-jitsu is, I hadn't experienced that level of passion in Australia, and I brought that back with me, and that really fueled me to want to be better, want to be the best, and just destroy people with jiu-jitsu.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What was take me now to some of the I suppose what's the word? What am I looking for here? The struggles that you face. So talking about this honeymoon period that folks go through, and anyone listening can identify with this, and then you kind of hit these hurdles where you're like, fuck, maybe you get a new job, maybe you start to get bad energy with your gym or your training partners, whatever it is, something just gets in the way of you having this kind of pure love for the thing and being happy to turn up all the time. All of a sudden it becomes tricky.
Yeah, life changes.
Tell me about the first piece.
First one was probably shoulder injury. This guy snagged me in a triangle very quickly. Like I thought, at blue belt, I was doing pretty well. I'd come back from Brazil. I was putting smash on crew. As a blue belt, felt good, felt like I was the best blue belt. This guy just snatched me up in a triangle so fast. And I was like, nah, I'm getting out of this. Put me into a Kimura. I fought out of it. My shoulder popped, put me in an armbar. I fought out of it, popped my elbow, fought me back to a Kimura, all the time working his triangle. Eventually, triangle armbars me, but I've already kind of torn infraspinatus, supraspinatus, and like popped my elbow. And I couldn't use my arm properly. I was a personal trainer. I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't put weights back properly. Like, couldn't live my life. And that was very confronting.
Yeah. Training or competition?
In comp.
In comp.
And I also couldn't train jiu-jitsu. I couldn't roll on that shoulder. I couldn't sleep on that shoulder. Like, man, it got so real. I'm like 3.5 years in and I'm like, holy crap. I can't anything properly, really. And that was like, I mean, I'd hurt my ribs before that. I'd hurt my back. Like I got stacked really hard, but not surgery level. No, I didn't get surgery on my shoulder. I got a lot of rehab and it's fine. But it was like so confronting because I couldn't function properly for 3 months. And that made me go, should I keep doing this? Because I need my job. I got to pay my rent. I love being fit and healthy. Do I compromise that for jiu-jitsu? And yeah, it had to take a back step. I had like 3 months off and I had to do a ton of rehab. So it taught me about the rehab process. And then another thing on top of that was not long after I got my purple belt, I went to Brazil, I came back. And when I came back, I was a bit between gyms because I was traveling to South Geelong to train with Dan Cherubin. Shout out Dan Cherubin. Possibly one of the greatest guards of all time, in my opinion. Anybody, Australia, the whole world, one of the greatest guards. Australia's great secret, Dan Cherubin. But Dan couldn't really give me a position teaching because I was traveling to South Geelong and I was kind of getting ready for brown belt. I was around that time and he couldn't really give me classes to teach. He's like, yeah, you could come down twice a week. I can't pay you. I was like, well, I can't travel an hour and a half there, teach for 2 hours and come back and not get paid. He's like, well, it kind of was like a bit of an impasse because his club was small and whatever. And full respect to Dan, this is no comment on him. I needed to take that step to teach. I needed to make some money from jiu-jitsu. I needed to progress. And I was in between clubs. And I know a lot of people who are probably listening to this have had that experience where they've either moved house, they've got married, something's happened in their life and they can't train at their club for whatever reason. Or, it might even be political. You instructors become an almighty douchebag. Who knows? And so now you still want to do jiu-jitsu, but you can't do it. And Thiago Stefanuti was very welcoming to me. He knew me. And he's like, man, you can always just come train at Absolute. It's not a problem. And yeah, it was at that time that it was just because I couldn't commit to traveling to Geelong. I wasn't single at that time. I had a partner and I needed to work and a bunch of stuff. And I I had to make that choice that, one, I had to look after my body, and two, to continue jiu-jitsu, I had to change gyms. And that was a confronting thing.
Yeah, okay.
I almost stopped jiu-jitsu for a while there. Like there was
Just because it was logistically hard to get there, or it was like...
Well, it was almost like I didn't want to change gyms, but if I didn't change gyms, then
I'm not going to train
I had
at
to
all.
stop jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And that's more confronting than anything. And I love Dan and everything he did for me, and I owe him a lot, but I was determined to get my black belt. So I had to make that change.
Right. And what is that? Are you that feeling, is that a commitment to your team and to your coach, and you're like, that's my crew, and I don't see it happening without them? Or is it a pride piece? Like what?
No, I think it's a little bit obligation. It's like relationship. It's kind of like relationship. Like you build a friendship and it gets super deep, and you spend so much time with a person, and they just give to you as much as they can. And then but that's also maturity too. It's like, this isn't a live and die by the master thing. This is like, it's a gym, you pay a fee, and yes, it's a service rendered to you. But like, if the gym doesn't give you what you want, or you can't access the gym, you go to a different gym. And this is the world we live in. It's not the same as the old school, I only train with my master and die with the master and all that kind of thing. But it was just confronting because Dan had just taught me more jiu-jitsu than anyone. And I felt like I owed him a lot, but I had to also keep my life working. And that's the hard thing, right? How do you keep jiu-jitsu and keep your life functioning? And that was the choice I had to make.
What about after that? Has there ever been any, besides injuries, has there ever been like what's the word? Like a hurdle to your training?
I had a very anti-jiu-jitsu girlfriend for a period of time.
Tell me about her.
I will name her Hannah. Lovely human, but not jiu-jitsu. And funny was, she'd actually dated a jiu-jitsu guy previously.
Right on.
Don't know if that's a trend, but she didn't love jiu-jitsu.
She was into karate or some shit?
Yeah, I think she liked wine better than activity. No, Hannah's a great human, but just not supportive of jiu-jitsu and jealous of jiu-jitsu. Like, why you got to train? Why are you going to spend more time with me? Well, actually, jiu-jitsu is the first love, woman. You're the side chick. No, not true. I loved her dearly. I thought we'd be together forever. It didn't work out. But she definitely was encouraging me to not train. And that's quite negative. It's like anything. Like, I mean, I'm reasonably trainable, but it's like you reward positive behaviors, right? If I didn't go to training, you should cook me dinner and let's do this. And,
That's nice.
You're going to go to training, you sort yourself out.
Yeah, right.
You sort your own washing out. Like it was like very like subconscious, but it was very real.
Yeah.
And that slowed me down. And then I think at that time I had a injury was part of it, because I got a really full-on hip injury where I could barely walk for a period of time. I just didn't know what to do about it, and I just couldn't train jiu-jitsu. Yeah, and then it was like a string of injuries from purple to brown, and I just didn't compete at brown, basically. I think I might have competed once, and I was really looking at myself like, is this it? Like, is this where I stop? Because I'm that brown belt that's like so injured and so caught up with life that I don't stay on the path. And what was great was at that time, purple belt, my last trip to Brazil, Lockie and Liv were there, and they said, we're going to open a gym under Absolute. And I was like, dang, cool. Because I've always been a fan of Lockie, and I was friends with Liv. We'd been teammates through Absolute. And we trained together in Brazil. So we're like some of the only Australians there, apart from Cannon Clark Jones. For some of you out there, you may know Cannon. He's a beast, son of Ross Clark Jones, very famous surfer in Australian mythology, and truth.
Real life person.
Yeah, he's a real dude. But I'm saying that he has this mythological status.
Storm Surfers, he was in that, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. And then also Adam Childs from the head of Alliance.
Who's that guy?
Oh God, I don't know. It's Gafanyoto.
Oh.
The grasshopper. He doesn't like being called that.
That's my coach.
Yeah,
For those who don't know.
Well, I mean, technically he's kind of my coach in a way too. But I like to try and remind him that we are more equal. No. But yeah, it was one of those things that we hung out a lot. And when they said we're going to start our own gym, I said, I will come and train with you guys. And that put me on that path.
That was like a little renewal.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck yeah, this is energizing. I'm
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah.
Were you still with the chick? Or
Or
was Lockie like, I'm going to need you to break up with her?
Well, he didn't know. No. I started training there, and it was closer to home, and that worked out. And then, but we right around my brown belt, we did break up, unfortunately, but fortunately, because I was teaching morning class, and my jiu-jitsu got better without her, unfortunately. But that's how it goes. You got to make these choices, friends. No, I think it was just one of those things. It's just like anything can run its term, and as obsessive as I am, there was more in jiu-jitsu for me and my relationship with all my friends and my community than there was in my relationship with my partner at that time.
Yeah.
And obviously there was other contributing factors, which was she wanted a partner who made more money. And that's pretty fucking simple.
You're like, but I'm going to be a black belt, baby.
Come on,
Black
man.
belt. Yeah.
I don't think it'll get the mortgage approved, but you know, man. And yeah, I think it was on my brown belt for a little while, but I got my black belt after 9.5 years. And there was a lot of up and down mentally through that time. I did have points where I was like, I think I have to stop. But I didn't. Like I did have bouts of injury where I just couldn't train.
Yeah.
But there was definitely the mental process of like, this isn't good for me. And I think you might have had some moments like that, Joe.
Yeah, I've had a good couple, which I won't go into now because I don't want to hijack it to me. But yeah, definitely. I think that anyone who trains jiu-jitsu, well, here's the thing. It's like you use the parallel of it's like being in a relationship. There's ups and downs always,
Yes.
and sometimes you break up, sometimes you work through it, you stay together.
Yeah.
Sometimes you take a break. Like there's
Sure.
all these different ways of dealing with these like down periods. And jiu-jitsu is no different. And there's potentially even more going on with jiu-jitsu because it is competitive, even in the gym. It's whether you say it is or it isn't, it fucking is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have some kind of view of yourself and your training partners, and there's a hierarchy, and it's like, and you're trying to climb this ladder. And so I think that there's a lot of emotional turmoil in that. And yeah, everyone has their own sort of different